Hello, everybody. Good morning. It's Dave Neal, stand-up comic, host of the Rush Hour podcast. I was sent this clip. It's a YouTube video, a podcast with Dana Carvey and David Spade. It's called Superfly with Dana Carvey. These are SNL, Saturday Night Live legends. Well, they, of course, were dropping some fun, not too interesting, but some fun tea about Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds and what they know regarding their sort of turning up to the Saturday Night Live 50 special event. As you guys know, it made big news when Ryan Reynolds sort of did that sort of like bit with the hosts of the special where they were like, how's it going? And he was like, why? What have you heard? That type of deal, right? So anyhow, we've got the comedic thoughts here by Dana Carvey on the left and by David Spade on the right. So I tell you what, I've got 4 different clips where they mention Blake Lively. Let's just play each one of them. Go to the 2-minute mark here. And again, this is Dana Carvey. He's, if you've ever watched SNL from the glory days, this was it. But he doesn't know too much, so they fill him in on the story.
To represent our podcast, what do you got to say?
The most questions I got about it, I'll just go through it, aside from where's Dana, which we cleared up, was which you did want to be there and you would have fucking killed it, of course, was Ryan Reynolds and Blake being there. Why were they there? They were there because I think they both hosted. If you have hosted, you are invited. You can come to any of those events, correct?
Yes, and of course, we all know this, whatever. I don't do a deep dive on it, but there's some kind of legal action with some actor, Baldoni's. It sounds like some kind of pasta place. And, I don't know what it is. I don't deep dive on it like you and Heather and Greg do, but our team, but you guys. But
by the way, just as a side note, Dana Carvey is using the most heavily filtered app I've ever seen in my life. He looks like a cartoon character here.
I thought it was kind of funny because it's been in all the newspapers. Yes, I'm from the 50s, all the newspapers. And when Ryan Reynolds said, what have you heard? Basically tongue in cheek about it. It was a good moment.
Just that was funny.
Yeah, but of course
funny.
They should go.
And look, I get it on the surface level. It's funny. I'm a comic. I'm not here to like criticize what is funny and what's not funny. It's the context though. If it turns out that Blake Lively made up all of her harassment complaints, it's one thing if like, I don't know, you guys might remember, who's the British actor who he was busted with a prostitute and then afterwards he was like, ooh, he was the butt of the joke. So he made fun of it. But Baldoni's kind of the butt of the joke. So, imagine if it was reversed where you could deep dive into it, but that's obviously why the nuance there of why people were like, yikes. So it's almost like some people get the levity of it and some people don't really know the full story.
They should go to the show.
They're like us. Just whatever's going on, you try to make a joke about it. But now listen, so they show up. I think nothing of it. I don't really even put it all together. Why are they there? I'm like, oh yeah, they host. Well, everyone there is a celebrity wherever you walk.
It's 400 people and they're celebrities or old billionaires. There was a lot of walking cadavers, Civil War veterans.
Actual cadavers. There was walking cadavers. There was one foot in the grave.
All right, so then they talk about who's there, but then at the 7-minute mark, they get into the cue card scenario, that being the Ryan Reynolds, the cue card guy admits that Ryan Reynolds was the one who wrote the bit.
It's hysterical. But you know how it's like, he's so sweet and naive. They definitely want to get one answer from him. So at the very end, they go.
And this is where Cue Card Wally goes on this Australian radio talk show. And they really just want to know about, like, who wrote this thing?
Hey, by the way, what was with that Ryan Reynolds thing?
God, it just goes
Did he just make that up? Or was that an ad lib? Or was it? And he said, he had a different line in the script. And then he came up with that. And so,
well, that's sort of archetypal. It's a classic line. I guess we're going to see it. Yeah.
Right. It's such a throwaway, but because of the situation, here's what I saw. Let's see.
Mm-hmm. You're telling me that SNL's plan was not to have Ryan Reynolds poke fun at his wife's SH allegations, but it was
SA, sexual assault.
Switch it up with a little
No, David Spade gets it wrong. It's a sexual harassment allegation, but whatever.
improv. I 1000% believe that. Q Card Wally, who has been doing the Q card for SNL for the past
Cue card
5
Wally.
years, is on the Fifi Fef and Nick show, and he actually spilled the tea.
Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively have been in the news a lot, and Ryan
Yes.
Reynolds, we want to know, was that an improv or was it scripted, his little piece he did?
Yeah.
That was actually he had a different line in rehearsal, and he pitched that to replace it. So that was his idea to do it.
He pitched that.
They were
And by the way, for all these people that are like, oh, Blake Lively wasn't in on it, it's like, obviously she was. I mean, she didn't have to be at rehearsal, but it's so obvious that it's like, that's a scripted moment.
we wouldn't want to do anything too
And what have
controversial
you
unless
heard?
they were in on it.
Why?
So yeah,
What have you heard?
that was his line. That was his idea to do it.
Right. He said we wouldn't want anyone to do something that they weren't in on, which is true.
Right.
We're
Yeah.
not there to bamboozle a host or so
No,
he had to
no.
he had to be aware.
But it was
Everyone was
the
aware.
classic. Why? What have you heard? When there's, it was perfect,
Great.
right?
And they didn't elaborate. They just did it.
But when you're
Now, some people think when you explain a joke, you kill it because the joke's so simple. But I like to hear other comics talk about the classics. Like, of course, it was a funny joke. I mean, it's just the context of what you're laughing at is the reason why you go, oh boy.
I would say that it's also, being at the SNL thing and everyone sort of saying, hey, cool, Ryan Reynolds and Blake are here. It helps.
okay, enough of them. Now I missed it. So what did I miss? What was the most
The show.
emotional or fun?
right, so-
I watched the show.
So Dana Carvey's like not into the Blake Lively conversation, but David Spade kind of understands that there's some, cultural relevance to the discussion. So here's the final clip.
Oh.
When I got in there, because there's a shortage.
Yeah.
So I go in this dressing room and I go, is this someone's dressing room? They're like, yeah, Tidy's. I was like, well, that's nice that she's cool. I feel bad. And then I see a gift bag and there's also one for Ryan Reynolds. And they're like, oh, he's using it right now, but his sketch is done. So he and Blake are leaving and you take over now. So if he comes back in, he'll just grab his gift bag. So when I'm leaving, of course I have to do a bit. He's signing something and I go behind him and go, wait, are you getting paid for this? And, big laughs by the page desk. And then said hi. And then we talked for a second. Then I went in and waited for our sketch, but really fun rehearsal day.
There it is. Nothing else. Let's see what the comments say. I don't know. Is there anything? I'm sure the comments are, no, maybe not. You see, this is what I'm talking about. These, people, you've had this discussion about like, will Blake and Ryan be canceled? Look, their whole comment section has no idea what's going on. They don't care. And it just goes to show, sure, there's some people that talk about it, but I've had people say like, no, Ryan Reynolds will definitely be canceled. Blake will definitely be canceled. It's like, I'm not saying they won't lose some work or whatever, but maybe they'll get lesser quality roles or they'll have to self-fund their own projects. But as far as right now, unless there's any other evidence that comes out, it looks like it's just going to be like a he said, she said, and there's no smoking gun in either way. Although I would say all of the evidence she said she had is pretty shoddy. Now, that doesn't mean I'm on her team. People like the second you provide any nuance, they go, oh my gosh, no way. But for those that are like, there's millions and millions of people following it. Okay, well, there's 300 plus million people in our country, but these movies, Deadpool and all, they play all over the world. Europe, they play in, the Asian markets, they're all over the place. So if something's too big to fail, and I'm not saying it's too big to fail, I'm just saying, if they're not going to find concrete evidence that Ryan Reynolds or Blake Lively, doctored something, all they have right now, and again, it's not light. It's just like, is it going to hold up in court? All they have right now is that she made these claims. He's showed the proof that her claims are kind of bogus. What's going to happen? I guess this is one of those things. Bookmark this video. Let's come back in 5 years and we're going to see if they lost any wages. Either way, I always, I'm sharing everything in the Blake Lively universe. So Dana Carvey, and by the way, maybe it was on purpose that he was using that Photoshop on his face. I have no idea. But hey, they're living legends in the SNL world. I'll have it no other way. All right, lots to get into. Stick around. More content coming your way next.